I dropped World's End Harem. World's End Harem, I got 85 chapters in. There was some semblance of a story, but to be honest, I know what you're thinking. You might have looked up World's End Harem, right? And you might be thinking, Rambling Brother, you're really gonna talk to me about story, about this kind of manga? And now look. I get it. It's very much a fan service ecchi manga where it's like it doesn't really, the story, I guess you could argue, doesn't really matter. But I also have to argue, if there's entire chapters dedicated to exposition dumps, the story has to matter to some extent. The author at least cares enough for there to be paragraphs and paragraphs of information, and at least characters with names and backstories. But let's start over. Let's go to the beginning. World's End Harem. I got 85 chapters in. The basic premise is that there's this disease that is killing like a bunch of men. The population of men is declining and declining and declining. Our main character ends up like frozen in like a cryotube because he actually has some like other disease or something. And basically him and like 4 other dudes are like the only guys left in the world. Like literally they're the only guys left in the world. But it's years later into the future. Well, not years later, but like there's a time skip. And basically they're like, you guys are now immune to this disease. We need you to have children so then that way those children, if they're male, will also be immune to the disease and they will be able to rebuild society and stuff like that. And so the story comes down to, I believe it's Japan, where they end up waking up. But surprise, surprise, America wants to capture the men, but then later it turns into killing the men because spoilers, huge spoilers. I read 85 chapters, so that's as far as I'll spoil. One of the 5 dudes ends up dying, but he ended up having a kid before he died, so it's kind of like he did his job kind of thing. But either way, we have our main character, Reito, right? And he loves this girl, and he basically is saving himself for this girl. I forget her name, but there's like a clone of her. You think it's her, but then it's revealed that like it's a clone of her named Mira. And the clone is actually like just like a bunch of clones of her, and they kind of explain why they cloned her, but to be honest, I cannot remember because it was not that interesting. It really didn't do anything for me. It's interesting because it's like the different perspectives of the men who come into this world. You have Reito, who's basically like this pure little boy, soy boy, who's like, no, I'm going to save myself for my loved one, even if there is a bunch of attractive women, all begging to be with me. Meanwhile, you have this total, like, playboy guy who's like, yeah, sure, I'll stick it in whatever. Let me have children. It's like, okay. And then you have this other guy, this younger guy who was, like, bullied in high school, but now he gets to be, like, the ultimate Chad in high school. And, like, his retainer, like his like what do you call it, like his retainer is like the only word I can think of right now, supervisor I guess, is like helping to orchestrate to turn him into like a total Chad. Then you have this other guy who ended up getting kidnapped by like a bunch of like tribal women, and they believe that there's like this like god or like spirit that'll manifest itself in him, and so he like turns like Super Saiyan and starts like plowing 100 girls a night, and it's like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? This manga is very much just like this is not safe for work manga, all right? And this is manga that you might not proudly show on your shelf if you live with your family or you have friends over, and then they might look at it and be like, oh, what's this? And you say, don't open that. And like this is pretty much what that manga is. There's some quality, and let me say some quality art in this, but other than that there really isn't much going on, and it kind of towards the later, like the early chapters, is all just fan service. There's nudity every chapter. And then later on, it sort of just devolves into, like I said, paragraphs and paragraphs of text. Them trying to like create a vaccine for the man killer virus, and it's just like, it's not an engaging story. It's not really an interesting story. America just plays the villain because it's a Japanese manga, so of course they have to be the villains. I think it's America. If it's not, then whatever. Who cares? I'm American. I'll admit we're the villains. We're the villains in everything. America can only do wrong. So, do I recommend this? Honestly, I have to say this is an at your own risk. If you just need something to, you spend some personal time, maybe like, 3 or 5 minutes, just you read a chapter or two. But if you're looking for an engaging story or like interesting characters, there really isn't much here. I can't recommend it. I'm not going to disapprove it, but I'm also going to say, if you need it, if you know what I'm saying, you're saying, Rambling brother, I got you, then okay. Either way, World's End Harem is in the At Your Own Risk category in the Rambling Brother collection.